Welcome back to our channel where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on Catherine, Princess of Wales and her royal family. We provide you with the exciting news: Queen Camilla at shock as King Charles, name Sophie, as secret weapon to reshape monarchy. An intimate source said that the royal family is currently reorganizing as the evidence suggests. King Charles is supposed to have chosen Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, as his secret weapon. Watch this short film to find out how Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, became the unlikely rescuer of the monarchy in the heart of palace turmoil. In the sacred hallways of Buckingham Palace, which have been in a state of anarchy as of late, King Charles III is now putting his new plan into effect. As a result of the strategy, an uncommon person will play a significant role in determining the future of the monarchy. The king is reportedly awarding Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, a new position that would make her the secret weapon of the firm, according to a person with a very high degree of authority. This move is intended to strengthen the public-facing responsibilities of a smaller royal family, but it has reportedly caused a lot of problems. According to sources, Queen Camilla is very angry about the decision because she sees it as a possible loss of her own power and a break from the carefully managed hierarchy. This move has caused a lot of problems. Her ascent to the pinnacle of the American royal family is among the most remarkable transformations in the history of the contemporary royal family. Now that she is firmly in the limelight, the Duchess, who was formerly considered an outcast within the royal family and had to cope with the risks associated with public life, is in the spotlight. Her ability to be personable and to have no airs and graces has become highly crucial in the new Carolean era, which has resulted in her being the unassuming powerhouse of the monarchy. She is a well-known somebody who does not fit the profile that you would expect. She does not give the impression that she thinks she is important, observed one of the reviewers when asked about her. It is precisely this kind of personal touch that has caused the general public to wake up and see the side of Sophie that her friends and family have known for years. More than just a symbol, this elevation is a significant one. The departure of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, as well as the Duke of York from the royal family, has resulted in a significant reduction in the number of individuals who are employed by the royal family. In all practical respects, the Duke of York has withdrawn from his position. It is possible that the king has finally achieved his long-held ideal of a more streamlined monarchy, but it is also possible that this achievement came about more quickly than he anticipated it would. An authority on royal affairs is quoted as saying, "The family kind of did that all on its own," in reference to the matter. There are only 3 persons in the firm that are younger than 75 years old: Edward and Sophie, as well as William and Kate. You are aware that Edward and Sophie are having to deal with a great deal of pressure at the moment. In this new environment, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh are no longer only supporting players. Rather, they have evolved into significant supporting pillars for the King of England and the Prince and Princess of Wales. Princess Anne, the Waleses, and the Edinburghs are the members of the team that constitute the nucleus of the group at this stage. That's it, somebody who is informed will remark. In particular, Sophie is now the 4th member of the family who puts in the greatest effort, and it is anticipated that the amount of work she has to do will continue to increase. The fact that she moved from being a public relations professional who was engaged in tabloid issues to being a trusted confidant of the late Queen, and now a critical participant in the King's new-look royal family, is a lesson in resilience, responsibility, and quiet determination. She went from being a person who appeared in tabloids to being a person who was involved in controversies. A title of honor that is full of history and love. On March 10, 2023, the first time in history that Sophie's position was raised, it was also the day that her husband, Prince Edward, turned 59. The people of Edinburgh, the capital of Scotland, filled the streets on a cold day to celebrate Edward and Sophie becoming the new Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh. As a big gesture, King Charles gave him the title, which had been dormant since the death of Prince Philip in 2021, to fulfill the long-held wishes of both of his late parents. The honor of becoming just the fourth royal in the history of the world to be given the title of Duchess of Edinburgh was one that was loaded with a great deal of enormous personal importance for Sophie. Her predecessor, the late Queen Elizabeth II, was a powerful figure, and she was following in her footsteps. Before the late Queen became Queen in 1952, she was the Duchess of Edinburgh, says a royal historian. She was the first ever Duchess of Edinburgh. It was one of the happiest moments of her life, considering that she had a small family and that the amount of strain was quite modest. King Charles gave Sophie this title, which was a huge message. A biographer said it was like a statement by the Queen passed on through Charles that Sophie is the real thing. This was a huge emotional moment for Sophie because she had a very close daughter-like relationship with her mother-in-law. It was also a huge honor for her because it was a title that had belonged to Queen Elizabeth II. She is someone who can carry on doing the kind of work that the Queen did. It was a monument to a connection that had been a source of great comfort to the late Queen in her last years after she had passed away. It was the highest royal mark of approval. The Queen and her second daughter have a relationship based on trust. Queen Elizabeth II and Sophie had one of the most heartwarming and real relationships in the royal family. It grew into a deep and personal relationship that went beyond the formal link between the Queen and her daughter-in-law. There are rumors that Sophie had a special ability to calm the Queen down for her. A royal journalist says, "I was told by a friend of Sophie's that she was one of the people the Queen would turn to when things got chaotic or difficult. It was widely believed that she had a high degree of composure, consistently provided sound guidance, and was someone whom the Queen could have complete faith in. It was both surprising and expected that they had things in common. They were able to connect through their love of horses and military history, and it was amazing that they would often spend peaceful nights together watching old war movies." A courtier said, "It was one of those relationships that brought out the simple in the Queen." Their closeness grew when Edward and Sophie joined HMS Bubble at Windsor Castle, a small private group of staff and family members who were dedicated to protecting the Queen and Prince Philip. The COVID-19 epidemic was the event that brought about this relationship. Sophie's support never wavered during the Duke of Edinburgh's death. The world will always remember the awful picture of the Queen sitting alone at his burial, but Sophie was there as close as the rules would allow, and she comforted the Queen in a calm and steady way. The general public often saw this deep devotion. In 2019, when Sophie spoke at a banquet at Buckingham Palace, she called the Queen by her family name, which made the guests very happy. "When I have returned from my travels, I have been so proud to share with you the work that I have witnessed." "Mama," she said, her voice full of love. "I have been so proud since I got back from my travels." Someone who was there said, "It was absolutely lovely." The late Queen thought of Sophie as a second daughter, a steady and loving presence after her other children's rocky marriages. It was said that she could feel the love between the two women directly. A difficult apprenticeship, from public relations assistant to princess. When Sophie finally made it to the center of the monarchy, her trip was anything but easy. She came from a middle-class and humble background, which set her apart from the aristocratic circles that the royal family usually hung out in. Sophie Helen Rhys-Jones was born in January 1965 and grew up in the quiet village of Brenchley in Kent. Her father Christopher imported tires, and her mother Mary worked part-time as a secretary. A biographer describes it as a remarkably ordinary background, a bit like Kate Middleton's. She went on to work in public relations after getting 8 O-levels and 2 A-levels, but she chose to go to secretarial school instead of college. She worked for a number of companies, including Capital Radio, and she even became famous for her public relations work for the strange TV character Mr. Blobby, who was on TV in the 1990s. By the middle of the 1990s, she had already started her own successful public relations firm, which she called RJH, and she was a modern professional woman who was financially independent. She met Prince Edward for the first time in 1987, but they didn't really connect until 6 years later at a tennis charity event. When Edward's partner couldn't play, Sophie, who is an avid athlete, stepped in to fill in. A friend said, "It's clear they had a great time together because they started dating not long after that." However, it is said that the Queen had a favorable opinion of Sophie from the very beginning. The fact that Sophie, although being a powerful and self-reliant lady, was not trying to overshadow anybody else, was something that she was claimed to have respected. Having Sophie's discretion was a great comfort for a family that had been shaken up by the turmoil that had surrounded Diana and Sarah Ferguson. It was a luxury that had never been offered to a royal lover before, but the Queen showed her approval by issuing Sophie a security clearance to Buckingham Palace, which allowed her to remain there overnight. People say that the Queen liked Sophie from the start. She respected Sophie for not trying to outshine anyone else, even though she was a strong and independent woman. Sophie's discretion was a great comfort to a family that had been shaken up by the drama surrounding Diana and Sarah Ferguson. The Queen also gave Sophie a security clearance to Buckingham Palace, which allowed her to stay there overnight. This was a luxury that had never been offered to a royal lover before. Through the use of tabloid journalism, humiliation and repentance may be brought about. Sophie was harmed by 2 highly humiliating scandals that were reported in the tabloids, which almost destroyed her future as a queen. In spite of the palace's best efforts to shield her from harm, these controversies were detrimental to her apprenticeship. The first note arrived around 3 weeks before her wedding, which took place in June of 1999. During the performance, DJ Chris Tarrant was seen tugging up Sophie's top, which revealed a portion of her breasts. According to the newspaper The Sun, the picture was shown on the main page. Sophie described her feelings as complete and utter betrayal. She had been informed that the photograph, which had been shot at a period of time when she was having fun as a teenager, had been ruined. On the other hand, one of her former colleagues had saved it and sold it for £100,000. Immediate and strong criticism was met with in reaction to the statement. Tony Blair, the President of the United Kingdom, has voiced his support for the royal family, and Buckingham Palace has released a statement denouncing the publication as premeditated cruelty. There was a public apology issued by The Sun, and a sizable contribution was given to all of Sophie's favored charity organizations. This action is not typical at all. Despite the fact that the experience was humiliating, there was a strong outpouring of sympathy from the general public for her immediately before the day of her wedding. This second event, which took place 2 years after the first one, was a devastating harm to the professional reputation. If the photo of the person without a top was a terrible intrusion, then the second incident was catastrophic damage. Maher Mahmood, an undercover reporter for the News of the World who is infamous for being a fake sheikh, became Sophie's target. Mahmood is known for making false claims about his religious beliefs. It was when he was pretending to be a wealthy customer for her public relations business that he secretly recorded the conversations that took place between the two of them. She made a lot of remarks that were embarrassing, and the footage recorded her casual and open manner. Sophie's words were captured on film. It is believed that she made critical remarks about prominent politicians, referred to the Queen as an old dear, stated that Charles and Camilla were waiting for the Queen Mother to pass away before they could marry, and referred to Cherie Blair, the wife of the Prime Minister at the time, as absolutely horrid. All of these statements pertain to the Queen. Additionally, she provided the idea that her public relations agency had an advantage in terms of financial resources due to her royal ties. This was a serious infraction for a firm that was very concerned about the possibility of being accused of cashing in. The consequences were really dreadful. Prince Charles, who had previously cautioned individuals about the prospect of a conflict of interest, is said to have been quite upset, according to reports. The event served as a challenging and illuminating learning experience. Sophie and Edward made a decision that would completely alter the trajectory of their life. They chose to give up their private employment and become working royals full-time. This decision would have a significant impact on the direction of their lives. Sophie made a significant sacrifice by doing so, since she was a lady who had built her own successful business and cherished the independence she had from the limits of her financial situation. I can only imagine that that would be quite a challenge, a friend thought to themselves as they contemplated the circumstance. On the other hand, it was exactly because of this sacrifice that she arrived at the moment when she underwent a profound transformation. She began the difficult and modest process of recovering the trust of both her family and the wider public by committing herself 100% to a life of service. This dedication was the beginning of the process, because it was claimed that the Queen was enormously pleased with Sophie. The path that Sophie would take to assume a prominent position in the monarchy was defined from that point forward. Marriage, motherhood, and the concept of a normal life are discussed in the book A Modern Royal. St. George's Chapel in Windsor, which was the location of the wedding of Sophie and Edward, which took place on June 19, 1999, was the occasion that laid the groundwork for their future lives as royals. In contrast to the enormous spectacles that Charles's and Andrew's weddings were, this one was designed to be more relaxed and uncomplicated. The Queen Mother enthusiastically violated the newlyweds' request that guests abstain from wearing hats, which was a request that was made by the newlyweds. The list of guests was narrowed down. In addition, they made the decision to forego the typical practice of showering the journalists and photographers with a kiss on the balcony. It has been said by an analyst that they were uttering something along the lines of, "We're not here just to jump when you, the press, say jump." For all intents and purposes, all they desired was to keep something for themselves inside their possession. The most obvious indication of their desire to lead a life that is grounded was the manner in which they dealt with the challenges of parenthood, which was fraught with personal sorrow. Sophie suffered from an ectopic pregnancy in the year 2001, which had the potential to be fatal. Unfortunately, she could not make it through the process and passed away, resulting in the loss of the baby. She was brought to the hospital for emergency surgery. This event, in conjunction with the efforts on the part of the crew of the air ambulance to save lives, will have a significant influence on her future work in the non-profit sector. In addition, the birth of their daughter, Lady Louise, in November of 2003 was a very difficult event for my wife and me. Due to the fact that Sophie had to have an emergency cesarean section, she had such a significant loss of blood that she was just 15 minutes away from passing dead on the spot. Having been born prematurely, Louise was required to remain in the hospital for a considerable amount of time. For her to survive, she required a massive blood transfusion. After going through such terrifying experiences, Sophie became someone whom the general public could relate to on a deep level. Additionally, she made history by being the first member of the royal family to give birth at a hospital that is a part of the National Health Service (NHS). She has expressed her gratitude to the staff of Frimley Park Hospital on several occasions throughout the course of her public service contributions. The most significant decision that Sophie and Edward made was to not bestow the title of His/Her Royal Highness HRH onto their children, Louise and James. This was the option that they made without hesitation. They made it quite apparent that they want for their children to enjoy the most typical upbringing that is practically feasible. It has been said by a royal author that they are sending a message that they want their children to have the opportunity to live regular lives and work in a manner that their parents may have wished for them to have done. The fact that Lady Louise worked at a neighborhood garden shop during the summer before she went to college is a testament to the unpretentious values that her parents instilled in her throughout the course of her childhood. In the footsteps of a legacy of responsibility and compassion, the ideal professional. Since the year 2002, when she became a princess on a full-time basis, Sophie has nearly never made a mistake. She has contributed to over 70 different charitable organizations, often devoting her support to issues that are near and dear to her heart. Because she has a real interest in the subject, she volunteers her time with groups that provide assistance to pregnant mothers. Save Sight, her daughter, was born with an eye condition, and air ambulances. Throughout the course of her career, she has developed into a prominent champion for women's problems in the international arena. Her travels to nations such as South Sudan, where she spoke with people who had survived sexual assault during times of conflict, have drawn attention to topics that are often disregarded, despite the fact that they are horrible. As stated by a specialist in the field of foreign policy, someone well known from the British royal family going there and speaking to survivors, is what attracts the attention of the whole world to a nation such as that. Due to the fact that she is emotionally educated and sensitive, she has developed into a presence that is soothing inside the royal family, which is renowned for being cool and collected. Furthermore, she is recognized for her ability to approach people in a gentle and sensitive manner, which is not typical among royals of her age. She is often seen soothing Prince George and Princess Anne, and she is also noted for her ability to do so. Sophie was recommended to Meghan Markle by the late Queen as a potential mentor due to the fact that she had both experience and sensitivity. The Queen said that Sophie would be a great person to talk to because she had come in as an outsider and made a great success of it, according to a source inside the palace. Sophie had made a great success of it. It was quite evident that the concept was not approved. Despite the fact that the offer was never taken, many people today believe it to be a tragic what-if situation in the story of the royal family of the Sussexes. Despite the fact that it was only an offer of aid, Meghan declined this offer, and I feel that Sophie suffered a great deal as a result of this decision. To put it simply, Sophie is the epitome of a contemporary and submissive royal. Now she has the title of Duchess of Edinburgh. She has reached the end of her trip, which began on the periphery of the organization and ended at the center of it. As she has endured public humiliation, personal anguish, and the tremendous pressures of royal life, she has done it with an air of modest grace and a steely resolve. She has adopted the royal norms while simultaneously shifting her status inside the royal family in a covert manner. She has taken the long view. There are reports circulating in the royal halls that Queen Camilla and Sophie are experiencing difficulties as a result of Sophie's new higher position. Yet Sophie is still concentrating on her job. She is the working royal who does her duties without making a lot of noise or lodging complaints, and she is the one who everyone relies on and looks to for guidance. There is a possibility that this secret weapon is the most significant and helpful instrument that the monarchy has during the uncertain reign of King Charles III. The following is a statement made by an individual who has been observing for a considerable amount of time. What we have now is a Duchess of Edinburgh that I think we can all be really rather proud of. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts, and goodbye for now.